Good morning, everybody, and thank you for participation. I look forward to some questions also at the end, as is the practice. We have a session today on common futures and the role of Rwanda in the Commonwealth. We have a very eminent panel here. Philip Parham, on my right, is the UK government's envoy to the Commonwealth. We have Philip Cotton, who is Vice Chancellor, University of Rwanda. We have Tanobi Nagom. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm quite surprised, but yeah.
She is the Program Director and Associate Fellow at Observer Research Foundation. We have Yusta Kaiteli, Acting Chief Executive Officer, Rwanda Governance Board. So we have a set of people experienced with both the learning process as well as the planning process for a common future. Without spending any more time, I'll request Philip Parham. We have two Philips today. So we hope the session will give a Philip to the issue. So Philip, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Harsha, and good morning, everybody. It's good to be back here again after being here on Wednesday. So maybe if I just set the context in which Rwanda's leadership of the Commonwealth will come. As most of you know, we had a Heads of Government meeting of the Commonwealth last year in London in April, and there were a lot of very ambitious commitments that were made at that meeting. And of course, there is a pattern often of big meetings, and it was a big meeting. We had 46 heads of government there out of the 53 Commonwealth members. There's a pattern of having big meetings with big announcements and then not a lot happening afterwards, and then another big meeting in a couple of years' time and more announcements without referring back to the previous one and what may or may not have happened since. And we, as the chair in office of the Commonwealth, because having hosted the last Heads of Government meeting, we are the chair in office until the next Heads of Government meeting, which will be here in Kigali at the end of June next year. As chair in office, we are very, very keen that when we get to Kigali next year, the Commonwealth collectively can say very clearly that, 2 years ago we said we were going to do A, B, C, and D, and look, you can see we actually have done A, B, C, and D. And the commitments and the activities which flow from them, broadly speaking, fall into 4 categories: security, prosperity, fairness, and sustainability. And to give you just some examples of what that means in concrete terms, under the prosperity heading, for example, we have something called the Commonwealth Connectivity Agenda, which the heads kicked off last year, which is all about Commonwealth governments trying to work with each other and with their private sectors in order to enhance connectivity of all kinds between them to increase flows of trade and investment and therefore to increase prosperity. So this is looking at digital connectivity, regulatory connectivity, physical connectivity, business-to-business connectivity, and so on. And for example, the UK and South Africa are co-chairing the work on digital connectivity. And the work on regulatory connectivity connects also with another initiative under the prosperity heading, which is the creation of a Commonwealth standards network funded by the UK, implemented by the British Standards Institute, which is already well underway. It was launched in September. 42 Commonwealth member states are signed up to it. And this is all about helping and encouraging Commonwealth members to adopt and implement international standards and, in due course, to influence the development of international standards in ways which will increase, again, their ability to trade effectively internationally. Likewise, the UK is helping several Commonwealth members implement the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement with the same objective in view. We are also funding with the ITC, the International Trade Commission of the WTO, a program called She Trades Commonwealth, which is about helping women entrepreneurs in Commonwealth countries move their businesses into international trade. So those are some examples under the prosperity heading. Under the security heading, the big item is cyber security, where the heads of government issued their cyber declaration, which is the biggest declaration on that subject by heads of government that there has been. And there is a lot of practical work now going on to conduct cyber audits in Commonwealth member states to identify areas of vulnerability and to build capacity in order to meet those areas of vulnerability. Other work on security includes, for example, projects to tackle human trafficking, child exploitation on the internet, and so on. Then on fairness, big item is girls' education, a big commitment from the UK on that in 11 Commonwealth countries, trying to move towards the target by 2030 of all children, boys and girls, having 12 years of quality education in the Commonwealth. And then sustainability, the top headline was the Blue Charter, which was issued by the heads of government last year, which is about sustainability of the oceans. There are now 9 member state action groups under that framework, led by different member states. Vanuatu in the UK co-lead something called the Commonwealth Clean Ocean Alliance, which is tackling plastics in the oceans. 27 Commonwealth member states are now signed up to that. That's about very specific commitments of things to be done to tackle that problem, and about assistance to those Commonwealth states who need that assistance to try to fulfil those commitments. So, as I say, we're talking about very specific things, real concrete outcomes we are trying to achieve over the coming year, 2 years since the last CHOGM to the next one, and beyond. And that's the context in which Rwanda will be taking over the chairmanship of the Commonwealth after they host the Heads of Government meeting here next year. And they're already well advanced in developing a policy framework for their Heads of Government meeting. And the framework which they have put forward and which is now being discussed among member states and will next be discussed next week in London when Commonwealth foreign ministers meet there, consists of 5 strands. The first is trade and business, which of course will mark significant continuity from the prosperity strand that we have currently running. The second is energy and environment, which again will mark significant continuity from the sustainability strand. The third is ICT and innovation, which of course will have significant links to the work that's already underway on cyber. And the fourth is on governance and the rule of law, which of course has significant links to some of the fairness agenda from the last Heads of Government meeting. And the fifth is youth, which is of course a key theme for the Commonwealth always. 60% of Commonwealth population is under 30 years old. And for us, youth has been a sort of cross-cutting, mainstreamed issue. The Rwandans are putting that sort of up front as a key headline item alongside the others. So you can see that there is a lot of continuity. There's a lot of focus on concrete outcomes, and I can tell you that the Rwandan authorities, from my discussions with them, are already focused on the story which they and the Commonwealth will have to tell in 2022 at the next Heads of Government meeting, 2 years after the one that will take place here next year. You know, they're already thinking, what will we do next year which will lead to concrete outcomes by 2022, which is great. That's exactly what we, the UK, are keen to see in the Commonwealth. And I should emphasise that the Commonwealth, of course, is 53 freely associated, sovereign, independent states, each with an equal voice, moving by consensus. That's the way that the Commonwealth does business. I should also emphasise that it's about 3 different, broadly speaking, 3 different types of actor. There's the 53 member state governments, which may well be at least 54 by the time we get to the next Heads of Government meeting. There's the Commonwealth Secretariat, providing that sort of central facilitating role. And there are all the different networks and organisations of the Commonwealth which are independent, like the professional associations of things like judges and magistrates, local government, architects, engineers, the Enterprise and Investment Council, and so on. And the trick is to try and pull together the value in all those networks and try to make the whole more than the sum of the parts. And so just finally, I would say that the particular things which I think Rwandan leadership will bring to the Commonwealth are obviously the unique experience of Rwanda, and the unique perspective that comes with that will bring something very special, I think, to their leadership of the Commonwealth. On issues like fragility and vulnerability and addressing those, which is very important to several Commonwealth states and on which Rwanda, of course, has a remarkable story to tell. Technology and the leapfrogging ahead with the use of new technology, and under their heading of ICT and innovation next year, I think that will be a very exciting area. The whole business of accountability and performance measurement of government delivery for its citizens, which I think we'll hear about from Usta later, and gender, and what's happened here in Rwanda on gender, which is, again, a key theme for the Commonwealth, and on South-South cooperation. And finally, also, if you look at the framework which the Rwandan government is putting forward for next year, under the Energy and Environment heading, they have a new strand on sustainable urbanisation, sustainable human settlements. And I think that could be a very exciting whole new area where the Commonwealth can bring real value for its members.
Thank you. Thank you, Philip. That was an extensive introduction to the Commonwealth, the common future, role of Rwanda. I now request Philip Cotton and I'll request shorter interventions from, that's okay. You gave a very good overview. So Philip Cotton, the floor is yours to tell us more about the specific role and the position of Rwanda in certain contexts to prepare some of the things which Philip had talked about.
Thank you very much and good morning. I have the most exciting job in the world because I'm one of 27,000 vice-chancellors in the world, and I think I'm the luckiest vice-chancellor in the world. I'm the most privileged because I have some of the most precious jewels that any country can produce in my 30,000 community-strong university. I have 27,000 undergraduates on 10 campuses around the country. We're the only public university in Rwanda, having merged 14 public institutions. So part of our context is the different cultures, histories, and traditions within the 14 institutions that now make the one university, the University of Rwanda. And as I explicate something about the context of Rwanda, I'm going to tell you something of the University of Rwanda. And the first thing I want to tell you about is the role of students. Because you want students to help to shape the future of education, and specifically higher education. And we've done that in very simple ways. So I already worked in the University of Rwanda. I used to head the College of Medicine before I became Vice-Chancellor. And when I moved to a different office block, I immediately moved the offices around. It's the kind of thing Vice-Chancellors do, I guess. But one of the first things I did on the first day is that I moved the Student Guild office, the Student Representative Council office next door to mine. The second thing I did is in Senate, I moved the Deputy Vice-Chancellors away from me, and I brought the Student Guild, the student representatives, to sit next to me. And I tell you that story because that story is the story of Rwanda. It's not the story of the University of Rwanda. Because the University of Rwanda reflects the nature, the culture, the values, the history of Rwanda, and solves the problems of Rwanda. And trying to bring compassion into a university as great as ours is something that we're working with other member universities in the Association of Commonwealth Universities with. How do you value every single individual in your university? How do you create a sense of belonging? And in this last academic year, I spent a substantial part of my budget, more than $6 million, in refurbishing student accommodation. Not laboratories, not teaching rooms, not giving my staff more trips, but actually refurbishing student accommodation, their bedrooms, their bathrooms. Why? Because we care about our students. If I cannot look my students in the face and say as I say to them, I love you, then we're actually not doing the job we're called to do within the context of Rwanda. The other thing I want to tell you about very briefly is teaching. We have to change the way that we teach people if education is going to liberate learners. So instead of sitting people in classrooms and being obsessed with knowledge-led intended learning outcomes, and then when they've passed the exams, paid their money, we send them out for experience. We're increasingly sending them out for experience first and then inviting them back to meet with us and saying, tell me about what you learned, tell me about what you saw, and I'll help you make sense of that. Because we're translators. We help people make sense of the world. We help people understand what it means to be truly human. And the last thing I'm going to tell you about in this round is our research. The University of Rwanda in the last few years has developed some centers of excellence. We're the only university in sub-Saharan Africa to get 4 World Bank centers of excellence in phase 2 of funding. Addis got 3, no other university got more than 2. The University of Rwanda got 4. The Africa Center of Excellence in Innovations in Teaching and Learning, Maths and Science, hallelujah. The Center of Excellence in Big Data, hallelujah. The Center of Excellence in Internet of Things, hallelujah. And the Center of Excellence in Energy for Sustainable Development, my 4th hallelujah of the morning. We have 8 centers of excellence. We have a total budget for those centers of excellence of $80 million. The University of Rwanda is able, within the context of Rwanda, to sit on a research and development budget of more than $300 million. Ladies and gentlemen, that's quite remarkable for a university in a country like ours in East Africa. We're now ranked according to Clarivate Analytics, and do I chase rankings? No, I do not. And we can talk about that over coffee. It might give you indigestion if we talk about it now. Do I chase rankings? No. But Clarivate Analytics, Thomson Reuters, mark us out as number 2 in East Africa, second to Makerere. Our normalized citation index is about the same as Johns Hopkins University in the US. Why do I tell you about that? Because it's part of the context of Rwanda, being able to leapfrog, being able to think towards the future while focusing on the present. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I request you to now take the floor, please.
Thank you, Harsh. Good morning, all. So let me first start by addressing the elephant in the room. We are discussing about the Commonwealth. So we all have a shared history, yes, thanks to Great Britain. Taking a cue from the conversations we had yesterday, yes, we've had a shared history, we've had a shared past. But we also now have a community called the Commonwealth, a collective called the Commonwealth. And how do we take this community forward? To me, it looks like, yes, there is a discussion that is to be had about our shared history, but perhaps that's a discussion for another day. Not less important, but as for the conversation today on a forward-looking Commonwealth, I think we need a disruption. A discontinuity must happen of the past and a commitment for the future. Taking a cue from Philip Parham's opening intervention, the Commonwealth spans 6 continents. We have 53 countries. I'm sure we have at least 1 country from each regional grouping. It is host to 1/3 of the global population, 2.4 billion. And to me, the answer to the future of the Commonwealth lies in this composition of its membership, the diversity of this composition of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is an ideal platform where there can be collectives of certain countries with shared specific problems who can collaborate together, there can be a sharing of ideas, sharing of experiences so that they're able to tackle those specific common problems. Let me take an example, a concrete example. For example, the small island developing countries. We've been having conversations about climate change, the panel right before on resilience in communities, on mitigation. The small island developing countries, I believe the Commonwealth has 25 such countries in the membership. They are going to be at the forefront of our climate debate, of our climate experiences. The Commonwealth provides an ideal platform where they can come together to collaborate, to share ideas on how they can move forward and prepare themselves for what is the reality that is climate change. Second, another theme that I feel has been reiterated in almost all panels in the last 2 days is the Afro-Asian century. Let us not forget that the Commonwealth has 19 countries of Africa, the whole eastern border of Africa, and there are enough Asian countries as well, 7 countries, I believe. The Commonwealth has a large number of developing and emerging countries, and what it provides is a platform for the sharing of real-time experiences as we move towards sustainability, as we move towards prosperity. We have a common official language. We have common institutions. We have fairly similar legal systems and business practices. The vehicle is in place. It is our moment to take that opportunity. We must move forward from the sentiments of the past to the commitment for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tana. Yusta, I would request you now to focus on the role of Rwanda, because we've got a very comprehensive picture about the Commonwealth, the issues. We saw the Rwandan way of, connecting and compassionate education. In other ways, how Rwanda can play a special role.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I think all the panelists have created what is common about us. And Rwanda is the youngest member, I think, of the Commonwealth. And that doesn't make us the most spoiled, but we are so lucky that we are hosting, having confidence of the older members to host the Commonwealth next year and to have leadership. I'm going to speak about what Rwanda brings on the table, considering already what Philip and Phil mentioned on what we are looking at in the next Commonwealth. But what Rwanda brings is what its story is. And I'll start from what already has been mentioned. 25 years ago, yesterday, we celebrated. I read at least 23 years ago, somebody had written that Rwanda was a destroyed nation. And when the people of a country are destroyed, when you are the biggest contributor of refugees across the region, when you have suffered a genocide that has killed over 1 million people, when you have had a war that lasted for 5 years, you qualify to be destroyed. So 25 years, that's where we picked ourselves from a number of refugees, from wounded at war, from homeless people, from the first home being tents for many people and not having those tents. And that's where we start from, and today we are seated in this room. So I will speak of the things that made the Rwandan story, and which is what we contribute, I think, to the Commonwealth. We all have a common challenge in the past. Many of the members of the Commonwealth have gone through fragile situations, in and out. But how you exit the fragile situation and apply the word common is what we used as a nation. And we embarked on 3 very strategic choices that everybody has to look into. And if you don't look into that, there is accountability. We have pursued our togetherness. That doesn't mean that we don't have different opinions. But we all want to survive as a nation and to develop and transform the people of Rwanda. And therefore, we must agree on certain things that are going to make us progress. Because we are not even a rich country, therefore we have to be to agree on how to prioritize and spend our resources. So togetherness has meant a lot of things. It has meant building trust in one another. I think it was mentioned it's a core value of the Commonwealth. It has meant including whoever must not have been included. I should mention 25 years ago, women did not, if you were a Rwandan woman and you had a child and the father was not known, that's the only time that child would be a Rwandan. Because initially, your child will be Rwandan because your husband is a Rwandan, or your child, despite of being born in Kigali, would be a Chinese because the father is Chinese. So the Rwandan women could not contribute to Rwandans if they had children by themselves. The law had to change to allow Rwandan women to feel equal to the population. So it doesn't matter if I was a Rwandan woman, if as a Rwandan woman I had a baby, it doesn't matter the father. The baby has full rights and can be the president of the Republic of Rwanda like anybody else. That is the story of the last 25 years, leave alone having women come on board. But that has happened just because we have dialogued on the cost of exclusiveness. What do we lose as a nation if women do not come on board? What do we lose as a nation if the youth are not part of this project? We have also created a very important accountability mechanism, and that's where the Rwanda Governance Board, my institution, shares a very important story like many other stories. Accountability is to ourselves. You know, we do not wait for a report from somewhere else. What my institution does actually, even reports from somewhere else, we sit down teams and they assess whether those reports are saying things that we should consider as a nation, because it's important that we consider them. But internally, we also establish tools of measuring those priorities that we have set. We, for example, have something we call the Rwanda Governance Scorecard. Every year, we issue the Rwanda Governance Scorecard, which tells the country the status of governance and how we are performing. And this is because we find governance as the most important element. Governance and the rule of law are the most important element to allow Rwandans enjoy and exercise their rights. So we have established measures of accountability, having priorities that we have agreed upon as a nation, but also being able to assess whether we are moving to the right steps. You know, every journey starts with a step, but that step should only be in the right direction for you to use your resources effectively. And that's what we do. A few times we have found some steps that have gone off the direction, either because of how people are behaving or because how much we understand the priorities. But because we measure it consistently as a country and as institutions, we are able to come back on the journey and stay on the course and use maximally the minimum resources that we have. And something that is very important about the Commonwealth and about sustainability is we all want a better future, I think. That's what matters about each of us, you know, about the 1/3 of the population that we spoke about, that you spoke about. Each of those people matter. And the only way that person matters and gets the opportunity is when we think about development that includes them, but also we think about opportunities that have them get the space. And through that, as a country, we have created spaces of thinking together. At the higher leadership level, we have the national retreat. Every leader takes the time at a high level, private, public, and we go off the city and we sit deep and discuss about how we have set our strategies, how we are delivering on the strategies, and why we are not effectively delivering, and how we can deliver better. We, as the Rwanda Governance Board also, to allow the citizens the space, they evaluate the districts and many of us in different areas through what we call the citizen report card. So we issue every year a citizen report card that tells the country how much the citizens are satisfied with service delivery. Why? Because the country has mentioned the extent at which we want to deliver, so the commitments that we want. Every Rwandan will tell you in 2024 we want to be at 90% of citizen satisfaction. I will tell you that we are now at 70% because I measure that every year. And for every institution, we'll tell them what they need to change, what they need to fix. And sometimes the fix is about the people. Sometimes you need to fix the leadership of the institution by excusing some of the leaders. I'm just being polite, but by excusing some of the leaders to allow those who have the passion and the interest in yielding the people. The people have a say and they must have a role. It's about them. It's about their own development and holding leaders accountable, but also giving them an opportunity to participate is core. And that leads me to my last point, homegrown innovations. You know, some of the things that this country delivers on better and most have been initiated by our homegrown solutions. We were graced or left by the genocide with over 1 million cases. Now, no legal system has ever been prepared to deal with 1 million cases. Justice is a value that we all pursue. So you either get stuck in the ordinary systems that you have and will not be able to deliver on justice in more than 100 years for that generation, or you will reconsider. You will look back and think, is justice just a formal thing that we have seen? Or these people who never killed each other for more than 100 or thousands of years, now have killed each other. The reason they didn't kill each other at the time, they had a value that is called justice. How did they interpret, how did they put to life that specific value? And that's how we brought our Gacaca courts, because Rwandans, on a day-to-day basis, they don't go to court every day, and doesn't mean they don't get conflicts. But in their communities, they know how to deal with conflicts and go on. Merging the opportunity of the justice values that we have today, but also using what people understand most as communities, the sense of justice that is a life value for the communities, gave us an opportunity to have a justice system that is effective. So we have had innovations as a country in the areas of governance, in the areas of development. If you were here last Saturday, you know, I was speaking to Phil Cotton, and he said, oh, my legs are hurting, I went to Uganda. Every Saturday we go to, every last Saturday of the month, we go to our communities and we participate in the cleanness. The moment you participate in the cleanness, you will also participate in keeping away the dirt. That's how we have been able to keep away the plastics that are on our streets. So trying to create a common understanding on the common values, but also being able to be innovative in thinking about the approaches. We are graced as a Commonwealth with so many approaches that have moved institutions from one level to another. Rwanda brings its story as the youngest, as one that has had an experience that was terrible, but as a story that is emerging and trying to be effective and trying to give value to each of the people that are in this country. The innovations and the opportunity to allow the space to innovate, I think, is what we are bringing to the Commonwealth as a country. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, we saw there's a lot which is common in the Commonwealth. And actually, even with diversity, you can find common approaches, common objectives. But there is also special in each of them. And I was just thinking about experiences creating a perspective to address the concerns of others in a way. You know, there's this saying that only the person who wears the shoe knows where it pinches. And I have 4 pages of points which I took from all of you. You've given a very rich background. I was just thinking that probably Rwanda is one country which would tick most of them in terms of, so you don't just sympathize, you empathize. And the title is A Common Future, Rwanda and the Commonwealth. You've given a very rich tour of the issues. What I would request now is, suppose you were the head of state of Rwanda, wanting to create the path ahead for the next 2 years. Each of you, because we don't have much time, I request you to give me 2 areas or 2 initiatives or 2 mechanisms which will really leave the stamp of Rwanda. Philip, I request you to begin.
Thank you. Well, it's very difficult to limit it to 2 because I think, as people will have heard, there are so many unique and specific things.
You can come back if something is left out.
Which I think Rwanda can bring to its leadership of the Commonwealth,
Well, we have
as
to
I
then
mentioned.
go to the questions.
2, yes. Yeah. So I would pick out the application and development of technology and innovation for development, and as part of that, the whole issue of sustainable urbanization and sustainable human settlements. That would be one, and The other, I think, would be the experience of overcoming fragility and vulnerability. That in both those areas, I think there is real scope for leadership by Rwanda in partnership with other Commonwealth members to the benefit of the wider membership.
Wonderful. Thank you. Philippe?
Thank you. I'll pick on two things that are successes in my mind that we need to consolidate. The first is universal health coverage. It's been achieved in this country, and we have some of the highest vaccination rates of any country in the continent. And the second thing is access for girls. In my university, we now have an intake into medicine, for example, of 50-50. And we've been able to achieve that by changing the admission, the way in which we admit students, not just on how well they do at high school, but using other forms of admission such as interviews and practical admission tests. And we've also managed to bring in girls' rooms into high schools and into universities to try and create a much more conducive culture for girls. So there would be two things that I would highlight that we could explicate during a Commonwealth meeting.
Thank you. Tanubi?
Thank you. So this is my first time in Kigali, in Rwanda. So from the very little I know of Rwanda and the little more that I know of the Commonwealth, my two quick takes. One would be mirroring Philip Parham's, there are two Philips here, sorry, is on the emergence of Rwanda and its excellent governance system despite the fragility very recently. So this is, I think, an experience worth sharing, and this is something that will be important for most of the Commonwealth members. Delivery of health systems. We had a session, I think, on the first day on the delivery of public health system post-fragility. This is a lesson that the Commonwealth members must exchange. The second thing would be on what Philip Cotton touched upon. It is the approach to education. The content is important, but the approach is as important. And right now, as we move from, and most of the Commonwealth members have a large youth bulge. Education and skilling the youth for the future is important. So how do we educate the youth of the Commonwealth so that they're not only ready for today, but for the uncertainties of tomorrow? I think that's the second thing that I would like to point out.
Thank you very much. Eusta?
Thank you very much. I think being fair, I should start with gender, but I will be speaking about creating a gendered environment for all of us, which is really about inclusion. Really understanding the journeys and the process. Like in many countries, we had very discriminatory laws. We had the absence of women and youth in the space. So being intentional about inclusion is going to be core. I think one part that Rwanda is going to contribute. And the other is seeking consensus. You know, we have learned that we have differences, but seeking consensus is not actually about ideas only. It's also about delivery. If you're going to deliver and be efficient in delivery, it's when you find consensus on what you're delivering on. Otherwise, you'll be having blocks of going up and blocks of going down. So trying to be innovative in the areas of governance and creating spaces of diversity in ideas, but having an impact of finding consensus in terms of delivery as the Commonwealth is about. And lastly, I think I will really emphasize accountability. The absence of accountability robs a lot of the people the opportunity to live a dignified life. So as we pursue citizen participation and a dignified life for everyone, we should really create opportunities and mechanisms of accountability for all of us. And that's what the rule of law means, actually. If we have efficiency, we must have consistent and constructive accountability for those who are office bearers, but also for the population that participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Philip, you said there were many. Do you have one which you really think has been left out?
I think that we pretty much covered everything that I. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, you know, I will not try and summarize it right now. Let's open the floor for questions. And in the end, I'll give you my summary thoughts. Questions, please. Please identify yourself and specify also who you are asking the question to. Just come closer to the microphone, maybe. It's not working? Okay. Is the other one working? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Afrodita, and I come from Kosovo. It's my first time in Africa, and the first country is Rwanda, of course. If I am allowed to take the liberty and to draw a parallel, we have also had a...
Can you ask the question, please?
Yes, but I need to make the context.
We don't have much time. That's the reason I'm asking.
So, to draw a parallel, we also had the conflict back in 1999, and we very shortly are not doing so well in resolving our issues. So my question to the panel is...
Can you identify one person you'd like to answer?
The gentleman on your right.
Philip Param. Okay.
Yes, just if you can maybe give your overview on what is the formula to develop like this, like Rwanda did, because I am a little bit contrasted by the views whether it's the people or is it the leadership that brought such development in such a short time, considering the scale of what happened. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's collect a few
okay.
questions.
I mean, I think that question is best answered by you.
Yeah, any other questions? Yeah.
So I'm Chris Zalewski from Poland. I have a question for non-British members of the panel. We have a very good chance that a British Prime Minister, next British Prime Minister, will be very vocal supporter of something which he calls Empire 2.0. And don't you think that this kind of language can be a little bit disruptive in talking to other members of the Commonwealth?
Okay. Any other question? So, Philip, you can also address. Is it okay if two persons answer your question? Yeah, great. So why don't you?
Thank you very much. I think a formula that works is a formula that is inclusive. I will use the same words in finding solutions. You know, in Rwanda we've had this kind of conference is part of our constitutional mandate. Actually, the Constitution allows. One of the core principles of the Constitution is that we will often and always pursue solutions to our problems through dialogue and seeking consensus. And what has happened since the early 90s, after we really emerged, was can we talk about these problems? You know, we had an opportunity to talk about the most hurting things of our country. When you look at the performance of the Gacaca courts, it was an opportunity to understand how people can destroy themselves. And those forums have been opportunities for us as individuals to judge what is right and wrong. So the opportunity that leadership has given us the space as the ordinary people to sit and discuss about our problem, but also to be part of the solution. Some of the solutions we've had in this country were just individual-formed solutions that go to the public and became public domain. So for Rwanda, I think for the Rwandan story, and I must say it must be contextual. It must be every society has a very specific history, has a very specific pain it has gone through, and how they confront it, you learn from others, but you must have a context-specific method of dealing with it. So our context, our method was, we understood that the country had been constructed on division. We couldn't do anything better in division, by the way. We had gone up to the genocide. So that was blocked off. If we went further, I don't know what else we would have done. We would have absolutely destroyed ourselves. So we only tried to be positive about ourselves and about genuinely doing it ourselves. We are very open to help. We are very open to learning new ideas. but every community must learn how to survive and go beyond. So we have no one formula, actually. We have, as I said, we have strategic priorities. Anything done is going to be pursuing our togetherness. Anything done is not going to compromise accountability. And anything done is going to pursue a big people in a small country. So this country is a small country, but it has a big people. So every person in Rwanda should wake up and thinking, I am big, I matter, I'm going to contribute to this universe. I'm going to contribute to my village. So for us, I think that's really what has worked. What has worked is to bring back value to individuals. Nobody is valueless to the extent of being destroyed. That is absolutely unacceptable. And we have had the opportunity that even political dialogue in this country has been emphasizing that each individual matters. And therefore, when each individual matters, you can do everything else. You can have your political ideology, as long as at the center of it is that everyone matters. So that is the formula that has worked for us. I think the Commonwealth is about sharing experiences. You just need to contextualize locally and try to think at local solutions. Some of the solutions are too external. Some of the solutions can be adopted. Some of the solutions can be actually applied with ease. And, you know, for the Rwandans to use Gacaca, it was very easy. They have used it in their smaller villages. Scaling it up to a national project was much easier than many other things. But we also maintained that space of engaging. Philip will know, and I will know, that sometime in December, we have a national dialogue. ICT has facilitated everything. So you'll be seated there in the room, and the student is sleeping in her bedroom, and she gets the phone and calls the president. The president is sharing the dialogue, and he will say, you know, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Rwanda is in the room, but you should visit our hostels. No dignified Rwandan should live there. So we have that consciousness of the space, and that everybody thinks, you know, our president is the most followed on Twitter. They will make their department issues will go to the president, not the office of the president, to the president, because we have these opportunities of sharing. And our people have learned to use those opportunities of sharing. They will demand what they are looking for. So I don't know if that is, I cannot scribe it and say everybody is going to go through this path. That would be not acceptable, I think, because we have gone to look inside. I think every community should look inside. Before a violent situation for every community, there was a community that lived much longer in harmony, in consistency. Being able to look back and really evaluate what breaks you and what can bind you is going to be was at the center of us reconstructing at least. And the journey is not 100% complete, but it's a journey that is moving in the right direction.
Thank you.
I'll answer very quickly the question from our friend from Poland. Incidentally, I'm part Polish and my wife is half Polish. Just to say that I can say with 100% confidence that no British Prime Minister would ever talk about Empire 2.0, whatever some other people or journalists might say. As I said in my earlier intervention, the Commonwealth is a free association of independent sovereign states, each of them with an equal voice, which moves by consensus. With all that implies. And the fact that Rwanda is going to be the next chair in office of the Commonwealth, Rwanda, which is the newest member of the Commonwealth, has only been in the Commonwealth 10 years, and which has never in fact been administered by the United Kingdom, unlike most members of the Commonwealth in one form or another. That is an illustration precisely of the vitality and the diversity of the Commonwealth. And it's a great illustration, and we very much welcome it.
Thank you. We have come to the end of our session. Just very quick summary, very quick, in answer to your question, that both people and leaders matter, in my view. But what has to happen is the clarity of objective, the clarity of strategies, what mechanisms and methods, and that's where use of technology, inclusiveness, compassion, etc. come in. Therefore, perhaps a case study approach where you take a structured framework with objectives, strategies, mechanisms, methods, and then fit it into your own situation. And the leader has to learn from it. So Thank you all. It's been a very rich discussion.